I don't know if this is the right sub for this. I'm posting from my phone in my car in the Harris Teeter parking lot because I can't be in the house right now. If a mod takes this down, I understand. I just need to get it out of my head. My daughter is 3. Her name is Hallie. She started at a new daycare in August because I got promoted and the hours at the old place didn't line up anymore. The new place is fine, licensed, clean. Ms. Tasha runs it out of a converted ranch off the old highway. And there's 6 kids, and a fenced yard, and a rabbit named Butter. Hallie loves it. She cried when I picked her up the first week because she didn't want to leave. About 3 weeks in, she started saying a word I didn't know. Moppin'. That's how she said it. Mop in. 2 syllables. She'd say it in the car on the way home. She'd say it in the bath. I asked her what moppin' was, and she said moppin' is the man. I asked her what man, and she said the man who lives in the ceiling. I laughed. I want you to know I laughed. Kids make stuff up. My nephew had an imaginary friend who was a refrigerator for a whole year. I asked Ms. Tasha about it at pickup. I said, hey, does Hallie have a friend at school named Moppin, or is that something from a show you all watch? Ms. Tasha's face did a thing. She said, no, honey, we don't watch anything like that. She said it quick. She changed the subject to snack schedules. That night, Hallie was in the tub, and she said, Moppin says you have pretty hair, Mama. I sat on the bathroom floor, and I said, baby, where did you hear about moppin'? I said it light. I did not want her to feel my hand shaking on the edge of the tub. She said at school. I said, who told you? She said Moppin did. I said Moppin goes to your school. She said Moppin goes where I go. I pulled her out of the tub early. She cried. I put her in her pajamas and I put her in my bed, not hers, and I locked the bedroom door, which I have not done since her father left. I lay awake until almost 4. She slept like a stone. The next morning, I kept her home. I called Ms. Tasha. I said I needed to ask her something strange, and she said, okay. I said, has a child at your daycare ever talked about someone named Moppin? There was a pause that went on too long. She said, and I am writing this down the way she said it. She said that name hasn't come up in a long time, sugar. I said, what does that mean? She said she'd call me back. She did not call me back. I drove over there at pickup time the next day, even though Hallie wasn't there. Ms. Tasha came out to the car. She would not let me in the house. She said some of the kids over the years have had a friend they talk about. She said, it's never been a problem. She said, if Hallie is upset by it, you don't need to bring her back. She had her arms crossed the whole time, and she was standing between me and the front door like I was going to try to get past her. I said, is there something in your house? She said, baby, there's something in a lot of houses. I have not taken Hallie back. That was 11 days ago. I thought, okay, whatever it was, it stayed there. She's home. She's safe. She hasn't said moppin' in a week. Last night, I went in to check on her before I went to bed. She does this thing where she kicks her blanket off, and I always tuck her back in. I opened the door, and she was sitting up, in the dark, facing the corner by her closet, the corner where the ceiling meets the wall. She was whispering. I said, Hallie, baby, it's late. Lay down. She said, I know, Mama. I'm telling him good night. I said, telling who? She said, Moppin came with us. I turned the light on. The corner was a corner, paint and drywall, and a little smudge where she'd touched it with a crayon months ago. She said, don't turn the light on. You'll scare him. I picked her up and took her into my bed, and she fell asleep on my chest. I stayed awake. At some point around 3 a.m., I heard something in her room, a soft sound, like somebody letting out a breath they'd been holding a long time. One breath, then nothing. I got up and I got her dressed while she was still half asleep, and I put her in the car, and I drove to the grocery store parking lot because I couldn't think where else to go, and the lot has lights and people. I'm writing this from the driver's seat. She's in her car seat eating crackers. She's fine. She's happy. She asked me why we're at the store so early, and I told her we were going to get donuts. I don't know what to do. I can't go to the police. What would I say? I can't call her pediatrician because I already know how that conversation goes. I thought about calling my mother, but my mother would say things I can't hear right now. Hallie just looked up at me from her car seat. She had cracker crumbs on her chin. She smiled. She said, Mama, Moppin says stop typing. I have not told her what I'm doing on my phone. I have a confession, and it's kind of embarrassing. Lately, I've been forgetting. It started with small things. I'd forget where things were, which could be explained. My bag. my keys, my phone. I figured it was stress. As a mother of 8 kids, I'm in a constant state of thinking of others, not myself. Then it became too noticeable to ignore. Forgetting mundane things turned into misremembering my children's names. I started mixing up my teenage sons. I would call my daughter by a completely different name, and the worst part was having to wear a smile and pretend I was joking for their sake. Pretending was lying. I wasn't their strong mama who could never get sick. I was Supermom. That's the mask I wore, what every mother wears. We wear it to protect our kids. The unspoken promise we never speak of when we give birth, to give ourselves to our children, our blood and breath and bones. If I wasn't Supermom, my kids would get scared. My kids would lose hope. My kids would fear I'd leave them alone in the world. No matter what. No matter what. I had to. I'm a mom, I tell myself. I'm their mom, I'm Supermom. Then I started blacking out. Why really scared me? I'd be cooking dinner or vacuuming the downstairs hallway, and then I'd find myself upstairs or halfway through a conversation I didn't remember starting. Foggy thoughts bleeding away, and a hollow vacancy, like half of me had been scooped out. Sorry, sweetie, I told my 16-year-old son, who I snapped at for no reason. All he did was smile at me, and it's like something in me snapped, unraveling. It felt wrong. I felt wrong, like a stranger had taken over my body. I'm not feeling good was my go-to excuse. It was better than the truth. Better than, I think I'm getting dementia. Or worse, I think I have a brain tumor. My kids noticed. It started slowly, like a tumor, but obvious enough to stick out to them. Of course it did. I was suddenly forgetting their favorite meals and mixed up their ages. I presented Anastasia, my youngest, with peanut butter cookies. She was allergic and had been since birth. They noticed my paranoia, which was getting worse. I started demanding why they were coming in so late. Their whispering amongst each other felt personal, like it was about me. My babies would get this look on their faces, like they too knew, and were in denial, wobbling lips and teary eyes that pretended to be okay. But I was okay. I was fine. I made an appointment with a neurologist at some point, right? The problem was, I wasn't sure when it was. When I searched for my phone, I couldn't find it. Hey, Mom. I blinked. Reality lately felt like drowning in a black hole. Standing in front of me was my son, Adam. Tall, ashy blonde hair, and glasses. Adam's smile was strained. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. Mom, he said again. I said that's enough milk. I didn't realize I was still pouring milk into his cereal bowl, Choco Flakes spilling over the rim. My hand jerked, and I placed the pitcher down. Instead of explaining, I grabbed a cloth, soaking up all of the spilled milk. My 8 children sat around our large dining table, 8 pairs of wide eyes, and I could barely piece together their names. I tried to smile, tried to pretend, but I was acutely aware my nose was bleeding. Mommy? Anastasia stirred her cereal. She leaned over the table to talk to one of her sisters, and something twisted in my gut. They were fucking talking about me again. Hey, I snapped, unable to control myself. Eat your breakfast and keep your mouths shut, all right? I slammed my fist down, heat rising in my cheeks. Stop fucking talking about me. I can hear you talking about me. I clamped my mouth shut, tears stinging my eyes. I immediately regretted my soulless words. I'm sorry, I whispered. Mommy is just tired. All right. More blood ran thick from my nose. I sniffed, swiping at my face. I took 2 steps toward the door, but my legs were aching. My body was suddenly wrong, heavy. I just need to go and lie down. Words were suddenly so hard, harder than breathing, and breathing was like sucking in poison. I noticed the silence, the lack of movement. All 8 of my children weren't reacting. Mom. Adam's face blurred in front of me. He reached out, and I thought he was going to feel my temperature, but his fingers tiptoed across my scalp, creeping down my neck. Mom. His voice was a low murmur. Can you tell me what my name is? I nodded dizzily, a blur of red escaping my lips. Ace, I whispered, reaching to stroke through his hair. You're my son. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. It's okay, Mom, he said softly. You're going to be okay. I reached out to hug him, to hold my son to my chest, but I wasn't expecting my arm to fall off. I thought I dropped something. Maybe I forgot I was holding it. But no, my right arm dropped to the floor with a sickening thud. The lights above flicker like they're trying to remember how to stay on, buzzing with that thin, dying electric whine. My mop drags across the floor in slow, wet strokes, back and forth, back and forth. I rinse it. I lean into it harder. It doesn't matter. The blood won't come up. It just spreads, thins in places, gathers in others, smeared across the tile like something with intent, something refusing to be wiped away, like it's still trying to say something. Then there's another sound, a soft shuffle, wet, uneven, like shoes tracking something they shouldn't be. I stop, listen. I glance left, then right. Rows of dolls and action figures stare back, their smiles fixed, eyes glassy and unblinking. A whole aisle of silent witnesses clocking every second of my shift. Something passes overhead, just a blink. The light above me dips like it got tired and blinked for a second. I turn toward the mouth of the aisle and nothing. Then breathing, close, wet, dragging in and out like lungs full of syrup. I turn the other way and it's already there. The skinned humanoid towers over me, easily 7 feet tall, its body a slick mass of exposed muscle stretched over a warped, uneven frame. It hunches forward as if the bones inside it don't quite fit right. Four arms unfolding and reaching, grasping at the air with slow, deliberate menace. Each finger ends in a black, chitinous claw, clicking softly as they flex, like something testing how easily I might come apart. It opens its mouth, and instead of words, centipedes pour out. A thick, writhing mass pours from its jaw, hitting the tile in a wet cascade. Bodies slapping and tangling as they pile over one another. They scatter in all directions, legs ticking against the floor, desperate to get away from whatever birthed them. That's when I see its eyes, or what's left of them. Two hollow sockets stare straight through me, empty and dark, and then they move. More centipedes push through from inside, spilling out in slow, steady streams, crawling over the edges, dropping to the floor to join the others. I look Abomination up and down before I muster the courage to say, "Not cool, man. Seriously, I've been mopping this aisle for like an hour." The monstrosity roars, a resonant, guttural sound reminiscent of the void itself. Centipedes scatter like spittle as it speaks. "I am Torketh, tormentor of souls. Deliver me your leader." I dip the mop back into the bucket, wring it out, and go right back to the same spot. Customer service is up front, dude. Do not avert your eyes from the unholy master of... I sigh and let the mop drop with a wet slap. Aisle 9 started bleeding again. Third time this week. The mannequins keep switching outfits. Whatever's living in the outdoor section keeps taking these heinous shits that no cleaner can touch. Bucky Johnson has returned the same pair of jean shorts 5 times. 5. And now you're here, spitting centipedes and asking for my manager. I gesture at him, at the floor, at the general collapse of meaning. "I'm making $10 an hour," I say. "Seriously, cut the shit." Torketh, tormentor of souls, pauses. Actually pauses. The claws stop clicking. The centipedes slow, like even they're waiting. His massive frame tilts a fraction, something like confusion working its way through all that exposed muscle. I can't really blame him. The guy just crawled out of the portal next to the trash compactor and got dropped straight into this place. Fluorescent lights, clearance bins, disappointing capitalism. He probably had expectations. Golgothia, Kurtuk, some other nightmare realm with rivers of screaming souls and skies that bleed fire. Not seasonal decor and a 2-for-1 sale on pool noodles. I demand. "Nutter butters," I say. "What?" I sigh. I don't know why, but you demon types love nutter butters. Don't ask me. It's a pattern. I jerk a thumb toward the front. "Aisle 3, end cap by the register. We've got plenty." I glance at the centipedes still threading their way across my freshly mopped floor. And if you don't have cash, we'll just toss an invoice into the void and see what comes back. Best case, it clears. Worst case, the portal screams for a while and vomits acid. Whatever. Torketh thrusts his arms forward and lets out a roar. I demand reverence. I demand respect. I demand to see. I walk over, reach into my back pocket, and pull out the bug spray. Yeah. PSST. PSST. Right in the face. Get out of here, I say. Get. Torkeith, the bug spewer, shrieks and staggers backward, all four arms flailing as he crashes into a display of Legos. Boxes explode across the floor in a plastic avalanche. God damn it. He flickers, his body stuttering in and out of itself, muscle phasing, edges going thin and transparent like a bad signal. These things never hold together long once they're here. Wrong air, wrong rules. He'd made it further than most, and somehow managed to.